YouTube family, Lisa A. Romano here, the Breakthrough Life Coach, and I have received a letter from a YouTube viewer, thank you very much, who has essentially asked me to address how to co-parent with the narcissist, and that is very near and dear to my heart. And I just want to say that, you know, we even if we're just co-parenting with someone who's difficult, there are definitely things that we could keep in mind that will help us move forward on our journey through a divorce or a separation, or through the rearing of our children with someone who is not the easiest to get along with. So what we first want to also take into account is we have to figure out whether or not we're codependent. And if we're codependent, then our happiness is somehow connected to something outside of ourselves. We are attached to this idea that something else is responsible for the way that we feel. So although we all have triggers to what's happening in our environment, the goal really is to not allow our emotions to control us. The goal is to learn how to master the emotions, become aware of the emotions, sort of like, you know, learning how to, like I've said this before in a video, we're learning to kind of like ride a surfboard where the emotions are the waves, and we're learning to stay on top of the emotions, like someone stays on top of a surfboard. When we allow our emotions to take us under, then we fall off the surfboard into the water, and we are subject to the riptides of the ocean, and that's when we get into trouble. And so if there are sharks in the ocean, you know, or dolphins or whatever, here we are. We're below the veil of consciousness, reacting out of our old triggers in our reactive mind or our primitive mind. And those of you who follow my work know that I'm talking about the triggers in the amygdala and the hippocampus. So it behooves you to study the amygdala and the hippocampus so that you understand the way your brain reacts to emotions. So if we can clearly identify from the get-go whether or not you have any codependency issues, that's really going to be helpful. Because what you'll have to do moving forward in terms of co-parenting as a recovering codependent with someone who may have narcissistic tendencies, if you know that you're codependent, then you have, well, for lack of a better term, the upper hand, because you will know that your journey moving forward will have to be rooted in not allowing your state of being to be codependent on something outside of yourself. For instance, let's say it's a female who's married to a female codependent mom who has a more narcissistic or very difficult ex-spouse who, perhaps for the sake of this video, is saying really poor things about the mom in front of the children. As someone who went through this horror, and if you've never been divorced and you've never been married to someone who really doesn't really take into accountability what their words do to your children, you'll never understand the gut-wrenching experience that is to know that you have to hand your children over to someone and they are subject. Your children are now completely powerless and a victim to what is going to come out of this person's mouth. And because you're divorced now, you can no longer be their buffer. I mean, that was my experience. When I was married, at least I could be the buffer between me and my ex at the time. But once we separated and we got divorced, then I literally had to hand my babies over to this person who unfortunately lived very below the veil of consciousness, in my humble opinion. He lived below the veil of consciousness. He was very reactive. So when he got angry, he reacted. When he was sad, he reacted. When he was depressed, he reacted. When he was melancholy, he reacted. When he was mildly frustrated, he reacted. There wasn't a whole lot of consciousness or expansive thinking to the point where he was able to understand on a grander level what his behaviors and how he was reacting was impacting our children. There was just pure reactivity on his part. And it was, first of all, I just want to say namaste, and I bow to the love and light in anyone out there that is going through this horrendous experience right now. It is horrible to have to hand your children over to someone who is so below the veil of consciousness that they are completely reactive and not understanding how their words are affecting your children. So I bow to the love and light in you, and you have I'm sending you my love, because it's really, really difficult to get through that. The good news is my children are 27, 24, and going to be 19, so the children do eventually chronologically age. So that does help, but while you're going through it, it's horrible. It's just a horrible experience, but just know, dear ones, that eventually the children do age and they're able to, break free. But while you're co-parenting with people who are difficult and or have narcissistic traits, because it's very simple to throw this term narcissist out there and label everybody who doesn't agree with you a narcissist. But it's a lot more complicated than that. And everybody is there is such a thing as healthy narcissism, to know who you are and to be able to decide what you want and to go for it in spite of what other people think. There is something called healthy narcissism. But when we're talking about a narcissistic spouse or a narcissistic mom or dad, we're talking about somebody who is narcissistic and cares about himself and absolutely excludes everybody else in their experience. So when two people are in a relationship, when a narcissist gets wounded, the narcissist has no concept that they may have hurt the other person. Whereas someone who's codependent can understand both sides of the story. And that's why codependents suffer, because they're like, oh my God, what did I do to this person? Where a narcissist will, and they can seem like a nice narcissist, but where a narcissist is somebody who, when you're involved with a narcissist and something goes down, it's all about them, and they cannot see you. They cannot understand your side of the story. They don't want to hear your side of the story. And they go into complete fight or flight mode and want to discredit you, and they say the most god-awful things to you. They cut you off. They want nothing to do with you because you've touched their nerve, which is their narcissistic injury, because a narcissist's whole life is about distractions and not allowing people to see what is truly at their core. And that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of looking at that core, and they will fight you. They're like, to me, they're like, bears that have their paws caught in a trap. And, even if you go try to release the trap from the bear's claw, the bear might rip your face off. Like, you're better off, just leaving the bear alone. So narcissists they don't want to go there, and they will cut you to pieces, and they will do what they can to hurt you. So obviously when you're trying to divorce someone like that, and sometimes it's like a codependent female, for instance, will say, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. And a narcissist will feel so reactive, like, you're leaving me? Oh yeah? And they will do whatever they can to annihilate you. They will talk bad about you. They will call your office and talk bad about you. They will spread rumors about you. They will start stories about you. They will try to discredit you. Sometimes if they have access to your personal information, I've had clients where their husbands, and sometimes the wives too. I had a male client whose wife literally burnt all his clothes. And she was like, what? What's the big deal? Because she was upset that he wanted a divorce, so she just burnt his clothes. Now, that's pretty serious. That's a pretty serious reaction. But it goes both ways. So it's not just male narcissists. There are female narcissists out there too. So when we're trying to co-parent with this type of personality, and I'm talking about a true hardcore narcissist who feels what they feel and has gut reactions and really does not have the headspace to consider what this does to the children, what their reactions to their visceral root chakra trauma, what their trauma does and their reaction does to the people around them. They don't care, they don't see it. Obviously it's very difficult, but what we want to do in that situation is you have to be very, very clear about, first of all, the law in your state. You have to know, because the only thing that's going to help you when you're divorcing a narcissist or you're dealing with family court issues with a narcissist is what's in black and white. Unfortunately, there are so many things, like I remember when the judge said to me, your ex-husband's relationship with your children is none of your business. I was like, what? It was like, what are you talking about? It was so devastating to hear that I had absolutely no control over the way he spoke to these children, unless it was severely detrimental and they were experiencing lots and lots of trauma. But so much of it, children hear their parents say things and they kind of like, they deal with it in the moment, but we don't see the effects of that until they're older. That trauma begins to surface when they're older. Children are very good at acting like they're okay when they're not. Could be a bad thing, could be a good thing, but that trauma ends up showing up later on. When you're co-parenting with a narcissist, you have to be very, very clear about what your laws are, because that's your best defense, and know when to take action. So much of when you're dealing with this type of a personality is about learning to hold on to yourself in the moment. So a narcissist is going to trigger a codependent's wounds, because a codependent suffers from attachment trauma. So and fear of what other people think. So when a narcissist is going to try to make you fear what they think of you. And a narcissist, in most cases, tries to gather people in his or her corner that are able to talk badly about you. That's generally how they behave. And so that's going to trigger, a non-recovered codependence root trauma, because, oh my God, what do they think about me? And so that's why I said earlier that if you can identify with any aspect of being a codependent, you've got the upper hand, because you know that when he's standing there and he's dropping the kids off and he says, yeah, you look like a slut today, don't react, don't care what he thinks. Like, he's entitled to his opinion of me. If I don't react, then he doesn't get the juice. He doesn't get electrified, because a narcissist is waiting to see your reaction, because he feeds off, or she feeds off, the reaction. The worst thing that you can do to a narcissist is really cut them off. Do not react to the narcissist. So I know that, for many years after my divorce, I reacted to my ex-husband. He would send me text messages and I would be, how could he say this? And I would shoot him a text back. But you know what? You never win. When you're dealing with a true hardcore narcissist, you're never going to win. Because they have the ability to go hit, just when you think you've gotten them and you've hit them below the belt, just like they hit you below the belt, they hit you lower. They find spots in you that you didn't even know you existed. They will stop at nothing to annihilate you, to hurt you, to make you cry, to bring you to your knees, to the point where you are there's nothing left but skin. So the best defense with the narcissist is to A, know where the line is in terms of the law in your city or your town or your state. Know what the law is. Absolutely. If there is any type of if you're threatened, then you call 911, you file a police report. If you get a text message where you are threatened, you file a police report. If your children come home and they feel threatened, then that's something, you need to get that documented. So documentation is really, really important when you're co-parenting with a narcissist. But the everyday stuff where he says this and she says that, so much of that is going to come down to you being able to identify the reaction in you, or the need for you to want that narcissist to stop. You can't control a narcissist, and you never will, and you won't be able to control a difficult person, because difficult people are just difficult. They need distractions, and the more chaotic their lives are, the happier they are. And so if you want peace, then you have to know that wrestling with the pig in the mud is not going to bring you peace. The best thing that you can do is, in love and light, let them be. If they want to call you names, they can call you names. If they're going to talk mildly, poorly about you in front of your children, one of the things that you can do is start teaching your children that you're sorry. You can say things to your children like, I'm really sorry that mommy or daddy chose to talk that way about me, and that, I can imagine that probably hurts your feelings, and I'm so sorry, that you had to listen to that, because you're half mommy and you're half daddy, but daddy's very angry right now, or mommy's very angry right now, and maybe in time daddy will choose different words, We want to try to like make it easier for the kids. We don't want the kids to worry about our feelings, because if you're trying to divorce a difficult person or a narcissist, they're going to try to, they're going to make it all about them. And what will happen is the poor kids, the poor babies, they're worried about how daddy feels, and they're worried about how mommy feels, and that's how they get lost. For the clients that I coach that are adult children of divorce, this is like a serious wound where, when they were little, they couldn't worry about themselves. They were so worried about daddy or so worried about mommy that all their feelings got stuffed and ignored. And here they are, adults, and they're having a difficult time acknowledging how they feel. So on your end of it, all you can do is control your end of it. So on your end of it, if you understand that your children are coming home and they're being manipulated by your ex-husband, the best thing that you can do is make it easier for them. Make light of the situations. You can touch it gently and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry that daddy chose to talk like that about mommy in front of you. I wish he didn't do that." And then kind of like pass the bread, or ask the children, "Do you want to talk about it?" And if they say no, leave it alone. But if you are if you're upbeat around the children and you do not talk poorly about your ex to your children, I guarantee you, dear one, when these children are older, like mine, they will say to their father or their mother, "Mommy or daddy never spoke bad about you. Like, it was only you that spoke badly about mom or badly about dad." It happens. So co-parenting with a narcissistic and or difficult spouse is ridiculously traumatic. They are not very negotiable. So just to clear this up, just to make this kind of bring this home for you guys, is that know what your state laws are and your city laws are. Know when when a true boundary has been crossed in the eyes of the law. From the day-to-day stuff, with the name calling and he said this and she said that, we have to practice being non-resistant to the idea that we can't control what comes out of other people's mouths. So when a friend says, "Oh, I bumped into Jim and you know what he said?" You can say, "I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it," Or, "Oh, I bumped into Marie and and she was hanging out with her new boyfriend." And you can say, "I don't want to hear it. Thank you so much, but I don't want to hear it." If some of you have, your parents are actually still friends with the ex-spouse. So in that case, you can just tell your family, "I don't want to talk about the ex-spouse. I can't control what you do, but I don't want to talk about him." So definitely set up boundaries. The other thing that we can do is if your spouse is very, very difficult and the drop-offs with the kids are difficult, then you can arrange to have someone else there when he or she comes to pick up the children, or you can arrange to have someone drop the children off. But again, we really got to focus on the babies. We really have to focus on the little ones that are being traumatized. The babies are half you and half your spouse, narcissist or difficult, borderline, whatever the case may be. They are. And it is so important that you watch what you say about the other half of them in front of them. It is so beneficial when you use, I call it the language of love and light, when you say, "I'm so sorry that daddy is so angry," or "I'm so sorry that, mommy is so angry, and I'm so sorry that he didn't come pick you up today. I'm so sorry for that." And then you bring it back, you show the kids, let's do something else. In the letter that I got from the YouTube viewers, she said that her spouse would make plans to pick up the children and then he doesn't come. I went through that myself too, especially when my ex had a girlfriend. That's when everything dropped off. And so what I would do is I would never make plans when he was supposed to pick up the kids. I understood that I was divorcing someone whose agenda it was to make my life a living effing hell. Okay, that was his agenda. And I made it very clear in my own head that my job was to make this as simple and as easy for my children as possible. They became my priority. So mommy did not make plans, period. That was a sacrifice I wanted to make for them. So I did not make plans when he was supposed to pick them up for visitation because I could not rely on him. And I didn't want to put myself through that, and I didn't want to put my children through that. And so I would wait. And if Daddy came and he picked up the kids, then that was great. And then I went out, or I went to yoga, or I went to the gym, or whatever. But there were so many times where he said, I'm going to pick up the kids, and he didn't. And I did have plans, and I did have to break the plans, and I was irritated, and I was aggravated. And so when Daddy didn't show up, my kids sensed that tension in me. And I'm sure they probably felt guilty. And that didn't happen a lot, but the few times that it did happen were more than it should have happened. More. So when I took accountability for that, like, okay, this guy thinks he's going to get the best of me, I'll show him. I just won't make any plans. You're not going to upset me. I'll just wait. I'll just wait to see what happens. So when he didn't come pick up the children as scheduled, I always had, an ace up my sleeve. I took the kids bowling, or I took them to fly kites, or we went finger painting. Like, I would buy paints and we'd finger paint. I was ready. I wanted to make this as easy for my children as possible. And I have to tell you, I believe it paid off. They definitely got hurt. There are times when my son remembers being left in the middle of the street by his father, which is awful. And there wasn't enough, there really wasn't enough bowling and enough finger painting that I ever could have done to heal the wound that was created that day. But I did my best. And now, as he's an adult now we have conversations about those times. So, dear ones, I've been there, and it's extremely difficult. And I would like you to consider also, because so often, when we're going through a difficult divorce, our friends don't get it, and our family doesn't get it. They don't understand the intensity of it. So that's a tough one. I would suggest, this is what I did. I ended up, sorry, I'm itchy. Always, when I'm doing a video, I don't know what's up with that. I always get itchy. I hope that's a good thing. But anyway, I digress. So anyway, I remember journaling. I would journal my ass off because I knew that the people in my life weren't going to understand the intensity of this divorce. So that's something that you can do. I would journal about what it feels like to this anxiety, what the anxiety feels like, and what it's doing to you, and what your fears are, and what you worry about. Things, get it out of you. So that'll help discharge the negative energy, so the kids don't pick up on it so much. And also remember, you have to be very good to yourself. There's just so much that you can do when you're divorcing a narcissist or a difficult person, and you're the person seeking information. Then, dear one, you're the one who's most level-headed, and it's going to be up to you to be the most flexible. And being really, really flexible does help. Being inflexible is just wreaks havoc on the children. So if you're willing to be extremely flexible, and you're flexible because of love, because you love your children that much, then everything will work out for you in the end. And it might take 7 or 10 years. It might take longer, depending on how old your children are. But if you're the most flexible parent, things will work out for you. Remember, a narcissist is going to attract codependence, and a narcissist wants to trigger our attachment trauma, and a narcissist wants to make us feel inadequate. And so we have to work at being as extremely non-codependent as possible, as resilient to whatever he or she has to say as possible. They will say, my ex-husband said things to me that brought me to my knees, and I'm annoyed that they ever brought me to my knees. But at the time, I was very worried about what he said and what he was telling other people about me. But now I don't worry about those things anymore. I understand that they come from a very, very dark place within him, very insecure place, and I don't need to defend myself to him or to anyone, because I know my intention. I know what I'm bringing into this world, and I knew what my intention was with my children, and I knew that he was blind. He had no intention when it came to the children, not really. His main agenda was to hurt me, was to deflect from his own pain, was to make everybody else responsible for what happened in our relationship. And no matter how much I took responsibility for what happened in our relationship, he was unable to take any, and all he did was stand there and point the fingers, and they were like machine guns. And they wreaked a lot of havoc, and the children suffered because of that. So thank you so much for your letter, dear one. I'm so blessed by it. And as always, I bow to the love and the light that is within you, and hang in there. Divorce is not fun, but I can guarantee you it's probably a hell of a lot worse for the children. So just be aware, that the most important thing that you can do is be flexible, know where the line is, try not to talk badly about your spouse in front of the children. Say things to them like, I'm so sorry that this is happening in front of you. I'm so sorry that he or she is choosing to talk to you like that. I'm so sorry that happened. Tell me how you feel. Get the children therapists. They need an advocate. They need someone that they can talk to about mommy and about daddy. Let the school counselors know what's going on. And like I said, you have to be very creative. And eventually this does come to an end. The children grow up and this does come to an end. So thank you for watching. And this is my latest book, Codependent, Now What? Codependent, Now What? It's not you, it's your programming. Essentially it's a workbook actually that I've created, and a lot of tools. So a lot of us, even though we know we're codependent, we don't know what the hell to do about it. So this book explains some of the things that you can do about it today. So namaste everybody, thanks for watching, love you so much, bye.